Hi, I'm Charlie and I'm an introvert. Today I want to talk to you about being an introvert and what that's meant for me as a designer, how it's affected my career, and share some advice for my fellow introverts out there for dealing with networking situations, presenting your work, and just embracing the fact that you're an introvert. I've mentioned in videos a couple of times that I'm an introvert, and there's always someone who comments saying, I never would have guessed that. I would have assumed you're an extrovert. And it's the same with people who meet me in person. Sometimes they assume I'm an extrovert because I'm not shy and quiet and, you know, the type of person that people assume an introvert is going to be. But the thing is, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert is all about where you get your energy from. So as an introvert, I get my energy from recharging being by myself. And when I'm around a group of other people, even a very small group of other people, it can drain my energy. And I need that alone time to recharge and get my energy back. Whereas extroverted people will get their energy from being around other people. They'll feed off their energy, they'll feed off the conversations, and that is what excites them and fills them with energy. And when they're alone, they can often feel drained and they crave that group situation more, I suppose. That's not to say that extroverts don't like being by themselves or need time by themselves, and it's also not to say that introverts don't enjoy spending time with other people. It's all about just where you get your energy from. I actually place a lot of value in making good connections with people and having conversations, getting to know people, but for me it's a conscious choice of spending my energy when I'm doing that, if that makes sense. So I'm an introvert who enjoys spending my energy on being around people. If you've never taken a personality test before and you're very confused by everything that I've talked about so far, I would highly recommend you go and do one. I think it's a bit of fun, and even though they are definitely a pseudoscience, I think they're a little bit more accurate than star signs because the results that you get are based on your answers to questions, not just when you were born. But yeah, how accurate can an online quiz really be? This is not actual science, but it's a bit of fun. And I think that anything that can help you understand yourself better or just, being more self-aware, that can't be a bad thing. And I definitely have enjoyed reading about my personality type, and I feel like I relate to a lot of the things that it says I work well at and what my weaknesses are. And it's been good for me to just, get to understand it a bit more. So go ahead and take one. You can just search for any Myers-Briggs personality test and it'll give you 4 letters that describe one of the personalities that you are. But my favorite one I think is 16 personalities. I'll leave a link to that one down in the description if you're interested. I am an INFJ, which is known as the advocate on the 16 personalities site. And I'll leave a link to that as well if you feel like you want to get to know me better. But I also relate to a bit of INFP and ISFJ as well. So it's good to have a read of all the profiles because some of them you will connect with more than others. And some you'll feel like that is definitely not me. And some you'll feel like, I agree with this bit, but not this bit. You know what I mean? But all of that nitty gritty and letters aside, the main thing for me with taking a personality test for the first time was understanding what an introvert was, what introversion was as opposed to extroversion. I think that a lot of the time being an extrovert is seen as the ideal and that being an introvert is something that you have to overcome. And I wholly disagree with that. I think that us introverts have our own strengths. I think perhaps it's seen that way because our workforce, right, the regular workplace is kind of set up more for extroverted people to succeed, right? With being around people all the time. Careers where you have to network a lot to get into it involves being around groups of people. So sometimes it can feel like us introverts have to overcome a few things in order to succeed. But like I said, we do have our own strengths. Introverts are very independent people. We don't rely on anyone else to get our energy, right? We can just get it from being by ourselves. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing to not have to rely so much on other people in that way. Introverts are also more about depth than they are about breadth, if that makes sense. So rather than getting to know a little bit about everything and being an all-rounder, we prefer to go deep dive on a topic and really get to know it. Also in group situations, we tend to be quieter, not talking so much. So it means we do more listening. We notice things, we take things in, and we build this understanding and empathy, which I think is especially great for design. However, if we're getting real about our careers, then we know that networking and building a network, getting to know people, making connections is really important. And networking events and conferences can be really difficult for introverts. Like I said, I like to spend my energy on these things because I do really actually enjoy getting to know people in that way and having a good conversation. But the thing is, you cannot guarantee that a good conversation and a good connection will be made at every networking event. So it is always difficult for me to force myself to like actually go to the thing. I make myself go because I want to make the space for that. I want to open myself up to the possibility of these deeper connections and conversations. And I know that I can't get that if I just stay in my apartment all the time. I think for me as well as introversion, there's a little bit of social anxiety going on there, but I very rarely regret it when I do go along to one of these events. And I want to give you some tips for how to cope at one if you struggle with this too. I saw a video from Amy Landino recently, who is a really great person to follow on YouTube, by the way, if you're not already. But she talked about being an introvert and the fact that she can turn it on when she needs to. And I feel like it's kind of the same for me. It's not that you're faking it and that you're faking having this personality that you can talk to people. It's more like I'm making a conscious choice that this is how I'm spending my energy, right? So I'm going to pour it all out of me. And I know I'm going to go home absolutely drained and not be able to do anything for a while after and need that time to recharge. But it's this conscious choice to spend my energy for the possibility of making these deeper connections. Accepting that makes it easier for me to strike up a conversation or like keep on going. And I liken it to going to the gym or something, like doing squats. It's not a super fun activity to do. You're not super comfortable when you're doing it, but you want to see the end results, right? You want to get fit and like improve your muscle tone or whatever. And so you do it, even though you don't particularly like, it's not your favorite thing to do. That's kind of how I think of networking and how I can go into it with enthusiasm, because I know that whatever I put in is gonna be what I get out. So I can go in and strike up a conversation and talk to someone, even if I don't feel totally confident and comfortable, because I know that that's something I have to do to get to a stage where I will be comfortable and like confident talking to this new person and forming that connection with them. I like to set very realistic expectations with myself as well. I don't go to a networking event or a conference trying to meet everybody and be like this social butterfly who's like, I don't know, the queen of the party, that sort of thing. I say when I go to one of these things that I just want to have one good conversation or meet like one really interesting and valuable person. And if I can achieve that, then that's great and I can call it a success. Again, this is about that depth rather than breadth that introverts have, where they would prefer to get to know someone deeply rather than get to know everyone. So I embrace that by just trying to meet one person. After a particularly good conference talk or something, it's always good to turn to the person next to you and like bring up one of the subjects that the speaker mentioned. It's a good way to break the ice and get to talking about something right away that's not the weather. On my podcast, Design Life, we actually did an episode about networking as well. And one of our community members, because we have this community for our podcast of designers, freelancers, creative people, and in it, Isan, I think, was who suggested this, said that what he asks people at conferences or events or whatever when he wants to get to know them is, what brings you here today? Which I think is a really nice question because it's quite open-ended. So it's a good like start to a conversation and it's not just like, where do you work? Which could have a one-word answer. And so, yeah, having that like saved up in the back of my mind is my thing I can pull out if I can't think of anything else to say, or if I couldn't think of a topic to discuss from the talk. It's a good one just to have there ready to pull out when you need it. Another situation that introverts can find really tough is presenting, whether it's a talk at a conference or just like to a small group of your team members showing your work. It can be really difficult. Myself and many other introverts do not like being the center of attention. We're not the type of people that you would call the life of the party. And yet I'm speaking at conferences, I'm hosting workshops, I'm making these YouTube videos. How I deal with this and how I get through it is thinking about my end goal. So as an INFJ, my personality type, one of the things that really drives us is helping people and getting to the root of the problem. That's something I really connect with about this like description of my personality. And I know that by getting up on stage and facing my fear and like putting myself out there and giving this talk, I'm going to be sharing advice that I think is going to help people. And even if it only helps one other person by me getting up there, then that makes it worth it for me. So keeping that goal in mind helps me kind of push through. Public speaking for me is kind of like when I'm networking. I know that I'm going to be uncomfortable, but I'm just going to decide to spend my energy on it and I'm going to do it. When I say this though, when I say you have to push through it, I don't want you to feel like you have to become a different person in order to do this. I think it's about embracing your personality. Like maybe you're really, really quiet and shy, but when someone gets to know you, that's when you open up and maybe you'll tell little jokes or like be super sarcastic or something like that. For me, when I'm giving a conference talk, I just try and pretend that I know everyone in the audience already and that I want to act like the person I am when I feel like I'm being myself. It's really hard to bring that out of you when you're feeling unconfident and uncomfortable, and I think it's definitely a skill that you learn over time. The more you do it, the more you get used to it, you know? So even though there is a little bit of fake it till you make it involved in this, you're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're pretending to be the person who you are when you're super comfortable. And that is how it's going to come across as natural, because it's still you. It's just not how you would normally prefer to act in this situation. I hope that makes sense, and I hope this helps somewhat. That perhaps if you're an introvert and you are struggling with things like networking or having to present your work to a team or something like that, that some of these tips will help you out and help you be a bit more confident in doing so. I really want you to embrace your introversion and remember that you've got your own strengths and that you don't have to become an extrovert in order to succeed. Alright, thank you for watching this video. I know it was a little bit different for me, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And if you want to talk to me more about this, I'm always down to talk about personality types. So if you've done the 16 personalities test or any of those Myers-Briggs, please tell me what your personality type is down below in the comments. And if you haven't yet, then go and do it, and then come back and share it, and let's chat about it down there. Alright, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, I make new videos about design and creativity, or in this case, just working in general, I guess could be the topic for this video. But I make videos every weekend, so hit subscribe if you want to see more of them, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!